Hello and welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
That is me. Hi guys, happy Friday. Welcome to the League. We have a great fun show for you tonight. Actually, it is going to be fun. It's fun for me. I love getting into the data and the minutia and the nuance, and there is not much of any of that in this. It's pretty much data. So we're in for some factual information tonight that might leave some jaws on the floor and it might explode some heads. But I'm down for either. So
As long as
I live wild. Yeah, as long as you make it to the wedding tomorrow, you're fine.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, guys. Anything you want to say to our wonderful viewers, our beautiful humanists?
Yes, especially since you just mentioned the wedding thing. I should elaborate. It's not my wedding.
Right.
Next year. And you're all invited. But cheers. Actually, tomorrow, I'm helping at a Viking wedding. And so it'll be super cool. Like they're going all out, like the ceremony and everything, and even like I think the bride's mom bought a dress from overseas. It's like from the show,
right.
like
the garb, the perfect garb.
Oh, from Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Yes.
And I finally got myself a little bit of Norse bling bling.
Yeah, you did. Oh, it's actually very pretty.
It's Odin with his ravens, and it actually spins.
It's a spinner. It's a fidget spinner for.
Oh, it is
in case you can't sit still, you'll just spin your necklace.
Oh, and I will. I was already playing with it today. But yeah, and I'm also wearing my kilt that I got for.
I love it. Hey, kilts are sexy. I'm sorry, but a man that can pull off the whole Scottish Highlander thing, and not Mel Gibson, he is exempt. He is not invited or a part of this thing I'm talking about. Actual Scottish garb without the anti-Semitism, please.
Well, I don't know if I can pull it off, but I'm going to try, and I did not shave my legs for this.
Well, that's a good thing because the Vikings didn't either.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes,
true.
They did also shave the back of their heads for men up until here. Yes, and that was for battle, not for looks. It was so that you can't get pulled.
Yeah, because that sucks when that happens.
Yeah, it's like two girls fighting.
As a martial artist, I've had to deal with hair, like to practice and getting out of hair pulls.
Well, yeah, it's an easy way to grab someone to take. And in a fight, you're not thinking what's best. You're thinking, how the heck do I get out of this? And if there's hair to grab, yeah.
Especially if they really get it, it really hurts. So
yes, it does. It does. Okay, you guys. I'm going to be talking about the red state murder problem we have in the United States of America. It is kind of jarring when you say those words, because we are told over and over, night after night, my entire life, that these liberal cities are the bastions of violence. If you can see this map, I will make it a little bit closer. Oh, and
there you go.
Here you go. So those are the red states that we will be discussing. Unfortunately, Florida is definitely in there. The takeaways that we'll be taking away from this will be the rate of numbers in the United States has gone up at an alarming rate. But despite a media narrative to the contrary, this is a problem that afflicts Republican-run cities and states as much or more than Democratic bastions. In 2020, per capita murders per capita murder rates were 40% higher in states won by Donald Trump than those won by Joe Biden. 8 out of 10, that's 80%. 8 out of 10 states with the highest murder rates in the year 2020 voted for Republican presidential nominee in every election this century. So, every news outlet, from Fox to CNN to the New York Times to your local newspapers, has a story with attention-grabbing headlines like U.S. cities hit all-time murder records. Fox News and Republicans have jumped on this and framed it as a Democrat problem. They blame it on Democrats' soft on crime approach and have even referred to a New York district attorney's approach as a hug-a-thug approach. Many news stories outside of Fox have also purported that police reform is responsible for this rise in murder and have pointed to cities like New York and Los Angeles. There is a measure of truth to those stories. I am not trying to say that that is not happening. That is not what I'm saying. The United States saw an alarming 30% increase in murder in the year 2020. While 2021 data is not yet complete, murder was on the rise again this past year. Some blue cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and Philadelphia have seen real and persistent increases in homicide. So I'm not trying to negate that being factual. These cities, along with others like Los Angeles, New York, and Minneapolis, are also in places with wall-to-wall media coverage and national media interest. But there is a large piece of the homicidal story that is missing and calls into question the veracity of the right-wing obsession over homicides in democratic cities. Murder rates are far higher in Trump voting red states than Biden voting blue states. Factual. And sometimes murder rates are highest in cities with Republican mayors. For example, my state, Florida, Jacksonville, a city with a Republican mayor, had 128 more murders in 2020 than San Francisco, a city with a Democrat mayor, despite their comparable populations. In fact, the homicide rate in Speaker Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco's was half of that of House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy Bakersfield, a city with a Republican mayor that overwhelmingly voted for Trump. Yet there is barely a whisper about any of this, let alone an outcry over the stunning levels of murders in these and other conservative places. We collected 2019 and 2020 murder data from all states. Comprehensive 2021 data is not yet available, as I had mentioned. We pulled the data from yearly crime reports released by state governments, specifically the Departments of Justice and Safety. For states that didn't issue state crime reports, we pulled data from reputable local news sources. To allow for comparison, we calculated the state's per capita murder rate, the number of murders per 100,000 residents, and categorized states by their presidential vote in the 2020 election, resulting in an even 25-25 split. We found that murder rates are, on average, 40% higher in the 25 states Donald Trump won in the last presidential election compared to those that voted for Joe Biden. In addition, murder rates in many of these red states dwarf those in blue states like New York and California and Massachusetts. And finally, many of the states with the worst number of rates, like Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama, That's how you say it because it's back asswards. So you just say Alabama. South Carolina and Arkansas are the ones that are I'm sorry, and South Carolina and Arkansas are ones that few would describe as urban. I wouldn't describe any of those as urban states. Only 2 of America's top 100 cities in population are located in these high murder rate states. And not a single one of the top 10 murder states registered in the top 15 for population density. So that whole talk about its population density and all these people, you got to get out to the rural America. That talking point on this topic is moot. Whether one does or does not blame Republican leaders for higher murder rates, it seems that Republican office holders do a better job of blaming Democrats for lethal crime than actually reducing lethal crime. Trump voting states account for 10 out of the 10 highest murder rates in 2020. That's 80%. So I'll read it that way. Trump voting states account for 80% of the highest murder rates in 2020. If you're tuned into the media and think you're informed, you think murder is rocketing skyward in New York and California and Illinois, especially Chicago. But those states do not even crack open the top 10. In fact, the top per capita murder states in 2020 were mostly those far from massive urban centers and Democratic mayors and governors. 8 of the top 10 worst murder rate states voted for Trump in 2020. None of those 8 has supported a Democrat for president since 1996. The chart below, which I did send not just some pictures, but if it doesn't work and we can't share them, that's fine. I will turn the picture, my screen around. It would be the picture number 1. The chart below shows the top 10 murder rates, the top 10 murder rate states in 2020. Mississippi had the highest homicide rate at 20.50 murders per 100,000 residents, followed by Louisiana at 15.79 out of 100,000 murders, Kentucky at 14.32, Alabama at 14.2, and Missouri, or Missouri as we're supposed to call it, at 14.0 out of 100,000. The national average across the country in 2020 is 6.5 murders per 100,000. 6.5. Mississippi, being the highest, had 20.50. So 20.50. If 6.5 is the national average per 100,000 residents, the top 5 states had rates more than twice that high. These red states are not generating murder is out of control national headlines at all. Do you see them? I don't see them. We see murder is out of control in Democratic cities. We're seeing all of those headlines aligned with something that has to do with something it's not. They seem to generate no headlines at all. The rest of the top 10 were filled out by South Carolina, New Mexico, Georgia, Arkansas, and Tennessee. All states rarely talked about, and breathless media reports about rampant crime in Democratic strongholds. Notably, New Mexico and Georgia were the only Biden voting states in the top 10, and they ranked 7th and 8th, respectively. I don't know if you can take a screenshot of that, but I will share the pictures underneath I did, add them to our thing. I know it's really hard to share with the setup that we have, but I will add all of those pictures. That would be picture number 1. There will be picture number 2, and there will be picture number 3. So
Number 1.
those numbers that I didn't read were South Carolina is 10.72, New Mexico is 10.70, and Georgia 10.50, Arkansas 10.29, and Tennessee is 9.90. Those are all significantly higher than the 6.5 national average. 5 of the largest Biden voting states by population, and those often in the news when it comes to crime, had much lower murder rates. New York at 4.11 per 100,000. They are below the national average, 4.11. California at 5.59. They are also below the 6.5. And New Jersey at 3.70. Nearly half of the national average. They were each well below the national average. Pennsylvania at 7.22 and Illinois at 9.20. Both were higher than the national average, but Mississippi's murder rate was nearly 400% higher than New York's, more than 250% higher than California's, and about 120% higher than Illinois. In fact, the 5 states with the highest murder rates, all Trump voting states, had rates at least 240% higher than New York's murder rate and at least 150% higher than California's. The homes to some of the largest cities featured prominently in the crime is out of control narrative headlines we're seeing all the time. 2020 murder rates are 40% higher in Trump voting states compared to voting Biden states, is how you sum up what we just talked about. So the next is beyond the top 10. We looked at the 2020 murder rates in the 25 states that voted for, I almost called him Cheeto McTweeto, who voted for Donald Trump, and compared it with the murder rates in the 25 states that voted for Joe Biden. The 8.20 murders per 100,000 residents rate in Trump states was 40% higher than the 5.78 murders per 100,000 residents in Biden states. These Biden voting states include the crime is out of control cities of Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Portland, Baltimore, Minneapolis, and many other large cities they like to harp on. Among the 50 states, murder rates were often well above the national average in many Republican-controlled states and cities. Jacksonville, Florida, with 176 homicides and a murder rate of 19.776, more than 3 times that of New York City with their 5.94, has a Republican mayor. Tulsa, 19.64, and Oklahoma City, 11.16, have Republican mayors in a Republican state and have murder rates that dwarf that of Los Angeles's 6.74. Lexington's mayor, a Republican mayor, saw record homicides in 2020 and 2021, with a murder rate of 10.61, nearly twice that of New York City. Bakersfield, 11.91, and Fresno, 14.09, each have Republican mayors and murder rates far higher than either San Francisco, New York, or Los Angeles. Of course, some cities controlled by Democrats have alarming murder rates, like Chicago, which is a 28.49. That's fucking high. And Houston, Texas, with a 17.32. That is very high. But we hear about these in other Democratic ran cities all the time on the news. That's all we hear. We aren't getting the whole picture, is what I'm saying. This would be picture number 2. The title of it is "The Average Murder Rate is 40% Higher in Trump Voting States." It literally has Trump state 2020 per capita, Biden state 2020 per capita. So I will mark them underneath so you guys know photo 1, photo 2, photo 3. It is, the numbers are there. You can't, I mean, the numbers aren't subjective is what I'm trying to say. I would try to show you, but it really won't make a difference unless you see it yourself. Between 2019 and 2020, murder rates increased slightly faster in Trump voting states than in Biden voting states. In 2020, murder rates increased nearly everywhere, but they increased more in Trump voting states than Biden voting states, albeit slightly. The average increase in murder rate across all Trump voting states was 32.2% compared to the 30.8% in Biden voting states. And that's once it's all compiled together. So like I said, you know, it's not going to be, you know, albeit slightly. 3 out of 5 states with the highest murder rates in 2020, Mississippi, Missouri, and Alabama, did not have reliable 2019 data available, so they weren't included in this analysis. So we don't even know how bad it was in 2019 because Trump and whoever else was helping run these bastions of right-wing, I don't even know. They don't care about the bureaucracy, the paperwork, the pencil pushers, the stuff that shows us what is happening so that we can be informed enough to do something about it. 3 of the 5 states with the largest increase in murder rates that were Trump voting are Wyoming at 91.7%, South Dakota at 69%, and Nebraska at 59.1%. These states are decidedly rural. They are not considered big cities and do not conform to the chaos in the city meme that has overtaken the crime debate across social and mainstream media. Biden vote in Wisconsin came in at the number 3 spot at 63.2%, and Minnesota came in 5th at 58.1%. Out of the top 10 states, 6 were Trump voting states, with the additional 3 being Kentucky, West Virginia, and Kansas. The remaining states in the top 10 were Delaware and Washington. Only 1 of the top 10 states in the murder rate increases, Delaware, was among the top 20 in population density. So the population density argument has to be done. If you start hearing it, turn the channel, change. They're fooling you. It's propaganda. That is not how it actually happens, and we have the data to show. Picture number 3 will be titled "Top 10 Murder Rate Increases in the United States." It does have some good information, like South Dakota's, their murder rate increase was 69%. Wyoming was 91.7%. This is, Kentucky, 58%. Nebraska, 59.1%. We'll go down to the very bottom. Kansas, 48.5% increase in murder in 2020. And again, California, New York, and Illinois aren't in the top 10. California's murder rate increase was 31.1%, or about the national average. Both New York and Illinois were above the national average. New York's increase for 2020 was 45.8, and Illinois was 38.2. That is above the national average. Conclusion, though. The current narrative around crime and murder is convenient and fucking wrong. Whether you're watching CNN or Fox News or getting news online from your traditional newspaper, you would think that the increase in murder is a phenomenon found mostly in liberal, very populated cities. Many had tried attributing this increase to Democratic policies, specifically police reform. Republican lawmakers and ad makers have contributed to this narrative through clever messaging and strategies, and of course, commercials on TV. But the data clearly paints a different story. The increase in murders is not a liberal city's problem, but a national problem, full stop. Murder rates aren't actually higher in Republican Trump voting states that haven't even flirted with the ideas like defund the police. 8 of the 10 most lawless high murder states are not only Trump voting states, but GOP bastions for the last quarter of a century. So they can't blame it on anything else. For a minimum of 50 years or more, they have been in control of this. So a more accurate conclusion from the data is that Republicans do a far better job blaming others for high murder rates than actually reducing high murder rates. Methodology. We sought 2019 and 2020 murder data from all 50 states. Our primary source was the annual crime reports released by state governments, more specifically from their departments of justice or public safety, or both. It combined everything. We chose state data because we found it's more comprehensive than the FBI data, which is often compiled later. For example, quote, the FBI estimated crime statistics for Mississippi are based on data received from 113 of 251 law enforcement agencies in the state that year. So not all of them even entered their information. 37 states had crime reports for the years 2019 and 2020. Alaska, Arkansas, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Iowa, Idaho, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, North Carolina, North Dakota, Nebraska, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Nevada, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. For the remaining states, we pulled data from published public sources. Alabama, U.S. News, Georgia, U.S. News, Hawaii, the Center Square, Indiana, Hartford City News Times, Louisiana, U.S. News, Maryland, Ocean City Today, Mississippi, U.S. News, Missouri, U.S. News, New Mexico, U.S. News, Ohio, Axios, Oregon, KOIN, Vermont, WCAX, and West Virginia, the Center Square. In 7 states, the public sources only provided murder per capita rates. So using the rates and census population data, we estimated the number of murders in that state. Data and sources are attached in this. And so I will attach those photos so you can see for yourself the sources, the numbers, who the state is, what their murder rate is, every single state, and then also in 2020, how their murder rate has risen and what percentage. I mean, 92% was that number 1 state. That's, I don't want to live in a state where murder and violent crimes has risen 92%. I just thought I came across while, doing my daily reading my news, and I thought this is something that I see all the time. I'm always seeing how the crime is rising. There's crime is on the rise. The crime is on the rise in Hillsborough County. That's where I am. Crime is on the rise here. But it's always, when you read the article, they actually blame liberal laws, lax laws, that hug a thug thing. Are you kidding me? These are people. These are actual people. And just because you're a thug doesn't mean a hug is not, it's not going to hurt anything. And they're just making it so that if you're bad, if you've done something bad, you're just bad. You don't even deserve a hug. And so by reading this and opening up, hopefully, some people's minds to at least accept new information, that what you're being given, like I told you, they're if you separate it 25 to 25 like they did, the rise is pretty similar, but that's overall. If you go into the detail and the minutia of these states, the leadership, how long has that leadership been there? Some of these areas have had what I call a good old boy leadership. Like the uncle is the judge, his brother's the sheriff, their daddy was the sheriff before that, their uncle's dad was the judge before that. The whole family has just ruled and ruled and ruled. And these are the areas that have the highest murder rate. Another thing that wasn't attached to this, because I know our listeners are super smart and can Google it themselves, the areas with the highest murder rate have the most amount of what? Guns.
What? No.
Yeah.
Can't blame.
Unfortunately, I know. If only there was a good guy, 1 or 2 or 40 at Uvalde, maybe even 100, something would have happened.
Maybe even 300 police officers.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Anywho, before I forget to mention it, the graphics that Chris was mentioned and tried to show during the show, I did actually post on our LEAH Facebook page.
Yay!
If you guys go there now, you can just go look at what Christy was talking about.
Yay!
In real time. There you go. Excuse me. But yeah, no. Which one is this? I think it's graph number 2. Yeah. Number 2, this like lineup of red and blue states. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild to see, like, because you really do that there's more crime, right? And in these blue states or blue cities even, right?
Yes.
But if you think of 2 blue cities right off the bat, I'm going to say like Chicago and New York City, right? Murder rate here. What is it? We're looking at the right graph. I want to double check before I speak. Yeah. No, that's right. Okay. Well, it's in Illinois, for Chicago, it's 9.2, and then New York is 4.1. Now you compare that with Mississippi,
right?
20.5. Excuse me, and let's compare New York to Kentucky, 14.32. Or Ohio, my home state, 7. Compared to New York.
Right. Compared to New York, what they're always talking about. I had to leave California and move to Texas, Mr. Rave Dubin. Rave Dubin had to move away from all the crime, and he moved to a state with even higher crime.
Even Texas has a higher murder rate than Arkansas.
Right. It does. It does.
In New York,
And,
that's what I was trying to say. Texas has a higher murder rate than New York.
I know the New York is
Yeah.
and think about New York is one of those opposite sort of bastions. It has been a very very progressive for decades and decades and decades, and they've had their problems, and they've had their non-problems. They have little areas like Florida is mostly red with some blue areas. New York is mostly blue with some red areas.
Yeah.
Check those areas out. Check out the numbers. It's all free information because we are citizens of the country. It's available to us. Let's see. And then this one, I'll be able to share them in the chat here too for our wonderful chatters. Save. All right, so I'll go to picture number 1. Share, create link. I did it all by myself. There's photo number 1. And
don't just click on a Christy's link. Make sure you go to our Facebook page and follow us.
yes, definitely. Got to do both.
Don't click on Christy's link, but go to Facebook. And if you guys aren't already subscribed, please do so. We dropped under 800. We're down to 799. So you guys need to each make a sock account.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, these numbers are interesting to say the least. I did not really expect this tonight. This is a really interesting topic.
Thank you.
It's just
I feel like there's just so much information that is available that's I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but is hidden from the electorate. Now that's a fact. So is that conspiratorial? Like to not let the people know exactly, okay, yes, there are crime problems in this place or this place or this place. However, let's discuss why. What are those crimes? What definitely is it? Murder is most common. The most common murder in our nation is by a gun. It just is. The most common cause for children to die in our nation under 18 is gun violence. Like this is a disease. It is a not even a virus. It's like a degenerative disease that's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse over the years if we do not somehow find a way to help create an informed electorate who understands that this is not easy stuff. This isn't black and white. There are similarities, there are differences, there are things that you can look at side by side that can be comparable. And there are things that you can look side by side who are not even apples and oranges, like an apple and a goat. Like they're not even the same. And unless we become media literate or basically media literate, these things are going to be hard to decipher. And when you hear crime is going up, that is true, but that's not the end of it. And this huge poll went out this past week. A lot of my favorite content creators have talked about it. They did a poll for Americans. What are the things you are most concerned about for the election? And number 4 was bodily autonomy and abortion. Number 4, for 51% of this nation's population to lose their bodily autonomy was number 4. Number 1 was inflation economy. And number 2 was violence. Violence. And they're not understanding this stuff. And so it's very important to, I guess, do our part. Truth is stronger than reality, Maya. You are right. Truth is golden. It is golden.
It's strange.
And hi, Maya. Mm-hmm. Always great to see that lovely human. Yes.
The
Tough topic.
The only thing I really want to dispute on what you said, and I mean, we can drag this out as long as we have to, Christy, but you said something about a goat not being the same as an apple.
Right.
I think you're going to need to prove that.
Well, you are what you eat. And my goats did like apples, so I kind of lost that one. Yes, okay. So we do have from our Lord and Savior, you know what, that crime does breed poverty. That's another one of those nuances when you're looking at this map of crime. If we could have these clear sheets that have, this sheet has this type of crime, this sheet has this type of crime, this one does poverty, this one does, and to lay them on top of each other and on top of each other, what we would get is a map of where there are food deserts, literal food deserts. And to describe that, in case someone doesn't know what that means, is they are very poor areas. Property taxes are non-existent, if any, because people are so poor. And grocery stores have moved out. There are no grocery stores. There's no farmers markets. There are gas stations. There are Wawas. There are little tiny marts, like a family grocery store. People are living off of packaged and canned food. That is a food desert. These are people who are not getting what they need to be a healthy human. When you're not getting those things, not to sound like one of those woo-woo, what you put in you can cure your body with how you eat. No, that's not true. But your brain does need nutrients. A growing child needs these things. And in a food desert where people don't even have a vehicle to get to another city to get those fresh fruits and vegetables, the poverty is huge when it comes to crime.
It is, yeah. And what Not just said, you guys can't see. Is, you know what though? Crime breeds it. Poverty. Fix the economy, and you will fix a lot of crime. And you're right. And I feel like now's a good time to go and Earth Inspiration just in the live chat said it's a snowball effect. It is. It absolutely is.
Right.
Now, I feel like now's a good time for a little rant, because our economy, our world economy, right? Like our collective economy, like it's intertwined with different things. Something Uncle of mine said to me just a couple of years ago now, and it's really stuck with me. And I didn't want to pick a big fight with him because we were having a really good conversation.
Right. But you're like, but you're wrong.
Right, yeah. And it's a seemingly little thing to be wrong about, but it shows how much of a lack of an understanding that he and a lot of, we'll say, normies have about the economy and politics. Mm-hmm. And he said, look, if you want to go down to the convenience store and buy a Hershey's bar, that has nothing to do with politics.
What?
And I'm like, I can just go with the Hershey bar and tell you that they used, like, the town of Hershey was a thing, right, and how Hershey would pay their employees with Hershey bucks.
Yes,
basically, Hershey Kisses to buy shit. Mm-hmm. And then, like, if that's not political, if that's not policy in your economy, right, I don't know what is. And that's not like that anymore. But that's because of politics.
Right.
Influence economics.
It is because of politics. You're right. Yeah.
And I don't need to explain that much further to anyone. But that one comment has sat with me for a couple of years now. and it's made me feel bad because I feel like I had a really good opportunity to actually educate this
Right.
this person
Right. You just want to
very
ruin.
quickly and very easily.
Right.
But now I've had time to think about it, and now I can share that with you. But it's the same with crime, and I can tell you by working in retail as I do, that I think more crimes coming, because there's a lot of, I mean, the retail world's pretty multifaceted, right? There's a lot of vendors, and then there's a lot of private owners of grocery stores, and then even some grocery stores hire vendors to stock their own grocery store name brand items.
Right.
And it's strange and it's weird, and sometimes grocery store employees aren't supposed to stock vendor items like your Frito-Lay chips and your Pepsi.
Really?
Really,
Interesting.
because they have certain vendors come in and stock it for them.
Huh.
And
Don't you be touching our products.
well, it's not even really just that. It's just like that's not our job. And if I remember right, that goes along with the unions too, because you don't want, I mean, if it's not your job and you work for a Walmart, a unionized Walmart, then wouldn't it be nice if,
It
but
would.
we'll say a unionized employee of Walmart, they wouldn't stock Pepsi because that's not their job, right? But you also wouldn't want someone from PepsiCo coming in and helping stock just general grocery store items
Right.
with Walmart employees, because you're then taking the hours away from the Walmart employees.
Right.
Really quite
It's a balancing act. Yeah.
And there are certain, and I should probably be careful of what I say because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But there are certain big name vendors, and unnamed one, like Nabisco.
Right.
Okay. And they're about to lay off a bunch of people. Like a quarter of the people who write the orders for Nabisco, a quarter of them are being let go.
Nabisco took PPP money so that they would not have to let anyone go during or after the pandemic.
Yes, but they are now doing it. They announced it a few weeks ago, and they've already let go of one set out of 4.
Wow.
And they're going to do that because it helps their bottom line. And they're going to continue to do that. They're going to do it again, I think, either in November or December, and then they're going to do it in March and then April, and then they'll be done getting rid of people. And they're not giving all of them severance packages.
Of course not.
They'll just be flat getting rid of most of them, but a few.
Wow. That reminds me of a little bit of history that I would like to share. You know, I'm
go ahead.
History obsessed. Somebody I do not care about so much as a person. He is not a good or bad person. It's hard to judge people from then with what we are and who we are and what we know now. However, Gerald Ford, who created Ford Automobile, when he created this, he decided that he wanted to do things differently. The manufacturing, having people stand in one spot and things come to you, and everybody has one little job, and we build these cars. That wasn't the new part. It was an innovative and cool, and people were like, well, this is cool. I've never done this kind of work before. What was innovative for him, for a capitalist at the time, before the New Deal, before any kind of regulations were put in, Ford said, not only am I going to offer my workers a living wage, he used the words living wage. He wanted it to be such a well-off living wage that not only would they never betray him or look for another job, but so that he could create these communities, which he did, that could take care of their families. And because he did that and then added insurance and then added all of these that nobody else was doing, other companies were getting mad at him saying, we can't do this. We can't do this. What are we going to do if this is the new rule and he's ruining capitalism? But what he did was he changed it for the better. Now, I'm not a fan of Ford's. I'm just what you were saying, you were reminding me of that, how you should take care of people. Go ahead.
Well, one quick correction, and TV2 caught it too. Gerald Ford, he was the 38th president.
Yeah, wrong Ford. Henry Ford. Thank you. Yeah. I'm always more political than I am. Cards. Okay. With cards, yes. Henry Ford. Yes. Thanks for the correction.
The Henry Ford Museum.
He dealt with a lot from his comrades, from people that were, he considered his friends who he spent his free time with, because what he was doing, the money per hour, the wages he was offering, other companies couldn't handle. And he knew that if he could pull this off, that he could make America a better place to be, and the place where he was. And he did. Make America great again. And then before I have nothing left to say, I always tell you guys, I am a very proud atheist. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised very, very religious. And just as I have some favorite poems and sayings from Beowulf, and from myths from the Greeks and myths from the Romans, I also have my favorite verse, if you will, from the myth of the Bible. And I always just sum it up to, and I believe this with my entire every fiber of my being: a group or a government shall be judged on how they treat the least among them. However, the proper translation of that, I would love to share with you guys. It is Matthew 25, 35 through 40 on our atheist show. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will turn and answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? When did we see you thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or see you needing clothes so that we could clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and get to go visit you? And the king will reply, which I say, the people will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you do to one of the least of these, the least of your brothers and sisters, the least of mine, you did to me. So that is the proper, I like my summed up, you should be judged on how you treat the least among you. And the least among us in our country is not a good look. Not saying that other countries have it worse, because they do. And that is not me saying that we are better or worse. My thing is, I love the nation I was born in, and I know we can do better. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm proud to be an American, USA, USA, and all of those things, and still say, I'm great, hallelujah, here's all the stuff we still have to do. And I there are parts of the Bible that are just very, very pretty, and we should never, ever lose them. And that is one of them. We shall be judged on how we treat the least among us. And isn't that kind of what humanism is?
Yes.
So I thought
Yes.
we'd end the murder presentation I brought with at least a little bit of biblical validation.
There you go. Very nice. Good wrap up.
Thank you.
I don't want to, because that was a really good wrap up. So I do want to say a couple more things real quick. That was on my, in my brain.
Hold on. TV Tube said New World Translation ? It is NIV, my love. Proud to be a
And
citizen of
Maya
the earth.
said, pretty sure that's been lost to Republican Jesus.
Maya is needs to come on as a guest one of these days because it would be a fantastic show.
Who does need to?
Maya.
Maya does? That'd be great.
Yes. Adkison. Yes, definitely. And in Congress. Yes, you're right. You pick the topic, Maya. We will have you on anytime. Anytime. Let you rant. Yes.
Jealous.
You will be we call our guests that we have on our extraordinary guests. So you would be an extraordinary guest.
We haven't had an extraordinary guest.
And we haven't had
extraordinarily amount of time.
Yes. Oh, well, talking about Henry Ford, he made sure his workers earned enough to buy a car from Ford. He figured, why would I have workers who can't even afford the things they're making, which is, come on, there are so many people, there are so many places I've worked that I couldn't afford. Salons I've worked at where I couldn't afford to come in and have a day of services that I have performed on people all day. That's massive, massive. So, and then it's each smart tactic to bring back the money you pay, LOL. That being said, he is also a Nazi sympathizer. And I would go further and say, sympathizer, nix that. Put a period after Nazi.
We had a lot of those back in the day.
Yeah, we did.
I listened to that whole video you sent me there. That's pretty
isn't that?
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that another time. We actually should bring that up as a topic because the right wing, the fascism that is flowing through the ranks of our military is not even being discussed at a top level to do something about it. That is something that would be great for us to talk about. So we'll discuss that over the next 2 weeks. And I hope everybody learned something tonight. I hope you can share some of that information, some of those data points to show when people say crime, and violence and liberals and violence and say, okay, here's the numbers.
Yeah. And I want to throw out a couple things real quick.
I'm gonna let you.
Thank you, Christy. I want to try to do this at the end of the show. I want to try to remember to do this because this is something that we always wanted to do with the show. It's like when we present these issues, right? These issues, these topics, we also want to present solutions, right? And it's always a humanist solution because it's just that's just what they end up being because that's what we do. And to again point out the problems with the murdering,
right?
Not to connected it to economics, right? Crime breeds poverty, and poverty breeds crime, right? So we need to fix our economy, make sure everyone is paid as much as Henry Ford would pay them, and or beyond. Not Henry Ford literally, because that wouldn't cut it nowadays. So we really need to fix our economy. And the first thing we need to do is we need socialism for the masses, not for the richest people among us. And I'm not just talking in America, also in Australia. Whenever we have any kind of bank bailout from the government or any kind of bailout from the government, what we need to do, even if we're trying to bail out an airport, just send some frequent flyers some money, right? If we want to bail out banks, you send out anyone who has a home loan or a car loan, you send them out. They'll pay the bank because they owe the bank, and it's hard to make your own payments, right? But you killed two birds, one stone that way. It is economically the smarter thing to do because, again, you kill two birds with one stone. Because you can't just give the money to the bank and say, hey, this helps you, right? No, you give it to the people who are going to do what first? Mostly, usually, pay rent, mortgage, and food, right? The most important needs. You do that, it boosts the economy. Because then that money is directly back into the economy rather than giving it to CEOs and already rich people to save it because they already have money. Now they just have more to put into their company, but also save it. Whatever. You kill more birds. I mean, birds aren't real. We've already discussed that once or twice. Birds aren't real. They're all government robots in the ways we don't care about them. So first thing, fix the economy. Second thing, education. I think education is the next thing. And you can't have good education if you don't uphold the First Amendment, which is free speech. I think we need to teach people about economics, right? Not just capitalism, but also socialism, also fascism, which isn't really economics, right? We need to teach people about the spectrum that is politics and economics. We need to teach people what is reality. I'm sorry. What is philosophy? We need to teach people philosophy, and we need to teach people about religion, right? On a wider scale, because I'm all about religious freedom in this country. Big advocate for religious freedom. You can have your religion, you can practice it. Bible says you should close yourself in a closet and pray, and you'll be rewarded for what you do in private, right? You go to church, not against that kind of fellowship. You are practicing your religion. That is fantastic. That is great, but you don't take it into schools, right? Build that wall between church and state. I think it's incredibly important because if you don't, yeah, maybe you'll get your Christian nation. Also, maybe you'll get a Catholic one, a Jewish one, or a Hindu one, or a Norse one, or whatever, right? You don't necessarily always get your way. You can't have freedom of religion without freedom from religion. And that's what a separation of church and state does. So if you can have real conversations, and thank you, Christy. If you can have real conversations about politics and economics, also in education, again, really talk about religion more broadly, so people have more of an open mind and are more accepting, then you will most likely have, I'm willing to bet a lot on it, you're probably going to have less extremists because you're going to have more understanding of people. And then if you have less extremists because people are more educated in politics, economics, religion, some of the most hot button issues, at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and also in Washington, D.C., and online. You know what we get? Less violence.
Yes, we do. Education is powerful in many
and a
ways.
lack of education is also incredibly powerful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And remember, not too long ago, we had a F POTUS, which I love calling him that because former POTUS, but F POTUS just sounds so good. You remember his words? I love the poorly educated. I bet you do. I bet you do, because you can actually have a conversation with them. I bet you do. Okay, so to end on something actually funny, Public Citizen has a blue check next to them on Twitter. You can follow them or not. I do follow Public Citizen. Leader McConnell posted, Democrat student loan socialism is a slap in the face to working Americans who sacrificed to pay their debt or made a different career choices to avoid student debt, a wildly unfair redistribution of wealth toward higher earning people. Public Citizen, not a leftist group at all, literally quote tweeted him. They posted his and then said, you literally canceled $1,900,000,000,000 in tax cuts for the rich. You should sit this one out, Mitch. So, gotta have a smile at the end. I love you guys. I do. I'm so glad you showed up. We got TV2. I love to see you here. You always have great comments. And Titan, of course. Gotta have Titan. It's good to see you guys. I hope you guys are doing well and everybody's healthy. And of course, our Brantley and, our Lord and Savior. We couldn't do this without our Lord and Savior. And that's LORT, people. Lord, it is important.
We tried like twice doing this without our Lord and Savior. And he said, guys, I love what you're trying to do, but this can't happen without someone in the background doing this.
Right? Yeah, he's like, so yeah,
he's like ready to call it in on life.
You guys need helmets with rainbow chin straps before you start licking the windows, because I'm coming to help.
Yeah. So a big thank you
to thank you. Yes, you couldn't do this without him.
Last fun thing, I just retweeted a tweet from Atheist God.
Okay.
What happens if a zombie bites a vampire?
Ooh.
So go to my Twitter page and why don't you add some more responses? I'm not going to tell you any that are here. Just go check them out, because I want to read more than the 21 that's already up.
It's going to be fun.
Thank you guys so much.
Halloween is fun. Halloween is fun. We have had requests for more movie nights, so I did talk to Mac, and we will start contemplating and pondering on, unless you guys want to start throwing some, suggestions out there. Of course, we have to.
Down in the comments. Down below.
Down in the comments.
You believe.
And you can go to our Facebook page and message us privately if you don't want.
If you want a private.
If you want to privately tell us what movie you would privately want to not privately watch. So we love you guys. And I guess all we have left to say is stay humanist, for godless sakes. Mwah.